Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anita Kamau, a lawyer here at Njogu and Associates. And today we will be discussing the topic of risk governance in corporate practice. So some of the things we will be discussing in today's webinar is what are the components of a risk management framework, the internal control measures, the role of the board in risk governance, and the ingredients of a robust risk governance framework. Of course, we will be keen to incorporate some case studies in our discussion. And today our facilitator is our very able Elizabeth Njoki, so she'll take us to the presentation. And yeah, I hope you're ready to enjoy and engage. So karibuni sana.
Good afternoon, everybody. Allow me to welcome you for the second time for today's webinar. My name is Elizabeth Njoki. I am a lawyer at the firm of Njogu and Associates Advocates. We have been doing a webinar series for the last 1 month now on corporate governance. So we have had a look at the foundations of corporate governance. We looked at the principles of corporate governance. And last week, we also had a discussion on board dynamics. Today's topic will be focused on the role of the board when it comes to risk. Those are news headlines from newspaper extracts. The first one is saying that Kenya court allows sale of Saiton's 40-acre land to investors. That's Saiton. Another one there again on Saiton, and it's CMA, don't invest in unlicensed products. CMA wants investors. And as you're looking at what is on your screen, think about it. If this is think that this would be your company. Don't think Saiton, don't think whatever company that will pop up on your screen. Think as your company, company XXX. Put your name there. The next one, all right. The next one is a caption there. Roma School, replace Roma School with whatever organization you belong to, your company, your business, your enterprise. Fined 4.5 million for posting minor's image without parental consent. The other one again, replace KPMG with your organization and say, whatever to pay ex-boss 379 million for illegal sack. All right. So I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the company that is involved there. All right, that's another photo there of lorry. You all know what was happening recently in Kenya with all the floods. So that's a milk van. That's somebody's, imagine it's your business. You have a company, probably you supply milk. That's your lorry, all right? Put yourself in those shoes. Okay, another one about Kenya Power. A weaker shilling pushes Kenya Power, replace Kenya Power with your business into 3.19 billion loss. Okay. All right, one more slide. Data stolen in XXX ransomware attack. Replace Naivas with your organization. Lastly, we know about WorldCoin. So is a caption on the news. Kenya suspends WorldCoin's crypto project over safety concerns. So that could be you on international news media. And having gone through that, I would like maybe to share your thoughts on the charts, what was going on in your mind as you were seeing all those slides and thinking about your own business in those shoes. What was going on in your mind? Okay.
Good afternoon, Elizabeth.
And good afternoon to you.
And fellow listeners. Okay, what is going through my mind is that risk can happen in any way, and it's usually unexpected. but it can take a great toll on the company or the organization.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Ombi is saying lack of ethics in leadership. Great. Anyone else? Okay, someone says the business in crisis. Yes, crisis, definitely. So what we are seeing here, and from the thoughts that you've shared, when we talk about risk, we are talking about uncertainties, something that could happen that is not happening right now. It's uncertain, but it's also a possibility. All right. We are seeing, floods happening. When you're opening your business, you do not anticipate that your lorry is going to be carried away by the floods on one morning. When your company is buying, is engaging in the stock market, you do not anticipate the market dynamics that may cause probably the value of the shilling to fluctuate, which may lead to losses. You don't, when you are putting like something like WorldCoin, you're starting a project, okay? Compliance issue, someone says something about ethics in leadership and business in crisis. So this is a business that is in crisis in terms of reputation because of a regulatory gap, okay? We are seeing another business fined 5 million because of using a student's image without complying with the data protection laws. Again, so when you look at all this, the crisis, the business ethics issue, the uncertainties, the losses that are looming for the business, where does the finger point to? Then that's where now we bring in the discussion of risk governance, all right? All right, so that gives us a glimpse of what you're going to be looking at. So let me now delve into the marrow of the topic today. So when you talk about risk governance, we are talking about the framework, processes, and systems that an organization uses to identify risks, to assess them, and to manage them, as well as to monitor. Because when we are talking about a corporate or whatever organization that you have, we are looking at the sustainability of this organization. We are not opening a business hoping that it's going to collapse tomorrow. Everyone who opens a company, who starts a business, it's because they have a vision that this is going to last, it's going to survive all the market turbulence that may come. You are not opening an enterprise or an entity looking forward for its collapse. You're also not opening a business looking forward to make losses, all right? In business, they say that the goal of business is not exactly to make money, but to make profit, all right? So when we talk about risk governance, we are looking at the systems and the frameworks that we have to put into place in order to take care of any factors that may pose an adverse effect to the vision, to the mission, to the goal, and to the objective of your organization. And that's why we are saying that it involves structures to manage uncertainties related to potential threats and opportunities, and ensuring that those threats are managed and addressed at all the levels of the organization. Okay, so what is the importance of risk governance? Risk governance is important because, one, you need to protect the assets and resources of your organization. For instance, taking the example of Cyton, I think we have a background of what happened to Cyton and how the project, the real estate project, didn't really go well after they had collected billions of money from investors. Then COVID happened. You know, those are market dynamics that they probably didn't foresee. And then here are investors who are saying, we want our money back. We want our money, and there's no money. And so they have to be dragged through so many court cases. They are overwhelmed with litigation. They are put under liquidation, and now their assets. The slide that we saw was that their land, that was their asset, was to be sold to be able to pay the investors. So that's a gap in risk governance. So we are protecting your assets and your resources. We are also ensuring that you're compliant, right? An example of WorldCoin, you are going into the system of, or rather into the sector of data issues, or you're collecting data from people. So have you put in place proper structures to ensure that you're compliant with the laws and regulations, and also enhancing decision making? When we talk about enhancing decision making, what do we mean? It means that if you're able to look at the risks in your organization, you can make an informed decision. All right, you can be able to say, based on the market temperature right now, it will not be advisable for us to invest in this product. It will not be advisable for us to take that loan facility. All right. So enhanced decision making, also promoting accountability, because you, especially when it comes to the level of the board, you are accountable to the stakeholders who are the shareholders as well as investors. Supporting strategic objectives, improving resilience. Okay, so if you can be able to foresee risk and prepare for it, when it comes, you will be able to withstand it. Improving resilience, fostering stakeholder confidence, as I said, and for example, investors. And just to mention that investors are very keen on the risk governance system of any corporate. I do not want, as an investor, to come and put in my money in a company where the structures are not well. I am not sure that my money is going to be safe. Okay. Then enabling opportunity management. If the opportunities are coming, you're able to know how to navigate them in a safe way that balances the interest of the organization in terms of meeting its objectives, making profit, and you know, functioning in a sound way, as well as, because the essence of risk governance is also maintaining a balance, because you don't want to say we are not going to invest because there are risks. No. Every business, every organization, you must take a risk if you are going to make any profit. So it's just a way of creating a balance to know which risk to take, which is not to take, the level of the risk, how impactful this risk, whether it's a low risk, whether it's a high risk. So that's enabling opportunity management, reducing costs, and also enhancing reputation and brand value. Right now, if you could take the example of Cyton, the whole scandal just spoils the name for the brand. Then the next thing we want to look at is components of a risk management framework. When you look at risk governance, I choose to look at it in two ways. Yeah, there is the risk management framework. We shall come to the place of the board, but before we go there, it's good for us to understand what a risk management framework looks like. So in risk governance, I choose to look at it in terms of the risk management framework and the internal control systems. And so firstly, let's look at the risk management framework. So a risk management framework has these components. The first component is risk identification. You need to sit down and look at all the possible risks in your enterprise, list them all. And risks could take the form of, that's where we come to the second point, categorizing operational risks. An operational risk could be someone is building, maybe it's a development, it's a project. What do they call it? A housing. You're building a house. Yeah, you're a developer. So someone could fall off while they are putting up stones up there. That's an operational risk. So have you put into account that kind of risk? It could be someone getting injured in any other way in the organization. A legal risk would come, like when you talk about employer, an employee who sues you for unfair termination, and you are faced with a judgment against you of 5 million. That's a legal risk. Compliance risk is looking at all the legal and regulatory framework that touches on your organization. Is it something to do with taxes? Is it if you are an NGO, you need to understand what is the regulatory framework that affects me as an NGO. We have the Public Benefits Organizations Act that was recently came into force. You need to understand what are the expectations of my organization under this act, all right? That's a compliance issue. Compliance also comes in terms of reporting standards, what is expected of you. And then the other one is financial. Financial is broad. It could be credit risk. If maybe you are a financial institution and you're looking at whether to lend to these people, who to give credit to. Also, it could be the other way around, whether to take certain credit. So those are financial risks. Could be political, reputational risk. If we do this, if we enter into certain collaborations with certain people, does it pose a risk to our reputation as an organization? So list down all the possible risks. It could be floods, it could be rain and Karatasi brands Pale industrial area is overwhelmed by the waters of the flood, and the operations are put to a halt. So those are the risks. That's the risk identification that I'm talking about. And then once you have identified the possible risks, you need now to categorize them into core and non-core risks. When you talk about core risks, we mean the risks that directly impact the core or the primary objective of your organization. All right. So if I am in the finance sector, I am a lender. If I'm looking at a risk of maybe a financial risk of the people that I'm extending credit to, that's a core risk. If I'm talking about an issue of investing in a certain product, that's a risk, all right? So I am, as a board, do we have to sit down and discuss, do we put in the shareholders' money into this investment? All right, if it goes well, if it goes wrong, that risk is core. Non-core could mean risks that don't have a very minimal effect or periphery effects to the primary objective of the organization. That could take the form of, let's say, like what I gave an example of a work injury. The work injury happening, if someone probably gets injured within your premises, that's a risk, yes, but it doesn't go to the very center of the vision, mission, and performance, profitability of that organization. All right, then risk measurement is what is the effect of each risk on the overall performance of the organization. If we are talking about a credit risk, that if we take this loan facility as a company, or if we invest in this product, what is the impact on the organization? And the other end, if someone gets injured within this premises, what's the risk? Or if the government decides to shut down certain operations, you need to look at that and measure the effects on the organization. The other one is risk mitigation. Risk mitigation is now determining what you need to put in place to mitigate risk. So there are those that you can eliminate or minimize. For instance, if you take an insurance cover, work injury insurance, that is a way of either minimizing or eliminating risk, so that perchance someone gets injured at work, the insurance will cover for that. And also you need to know which ones to retain. Eliminating could also mean that we are not going to venture into that. Based on the potential impact of this risk on this organization, we sit down and say, no, we're not going to go that way. We're not going to invest in this product. We're not going to set up our company in that area because it's not going to bring much profit to the organization. And then also you determine which ones you can retain. Again, the balance is. Finally, risk reporting and monitoring. That means you're regularly reporting and monitoring to ensure that the risks are minimal. Then, yes, the next arm of risk governance, as I said, I had put them into two, is internal control systems. So internal control systems are the processes that ensure that a company system is secure, reliable, and compliant with all the relevant regulations. And when I look at internal control systems in other terms, look at them as guardrails, okay? Or the fence that you have put around your institution. They are within your organization. What are the processes? What are the procedures? What are the systems that you have put in place to ensure that you are safe? You're not exposed to risk that may prejudice the ultimate performance of the organization. So the importance of risk control is, first of all, primarily it mitigates risk. As I said, there are a guardrail, and also the optimized processes. They lead to the improvement of processes and creating a more productive, more risk-aware company culture, because it establishes, processes. This is how we do things within this organization. It boosts the efficiency in terms of how the operational efficiency within the organization, and it also improves financial reporting, because when it comes to corporate governance, financial reporting is very key. And internal control systems ensure that data is available, it is correct, there are no irregularities, there are no errors. So I'll give an example of maybe the accounting function. Internal control systems are usually it's a key component when it comes even to auditing. So when I look at the transactions that are happening within that organization, are there proper records? Is there a system to ensure that I know the money that came in, who received it, how it was used, what went there, where, what was allocated to what? So that kind of system, it ensures that there are no errors or irregularities when it comes to financial reporting. Then there are 3 types of internal control systems. The first one is preventive. Preventive control. The preventive control system means that we are putting in place procedures, measures, activities to keep away risk, to keep away, let me call them errors, to keep away errors from occurring. If let me give an example of maybe it's the let me find an example. When it comes to anti-money laundering, yes, great. Anti-money laundering, if I am an institution, a preventive internal control system would be a system that allows me to know how much money is coming from this person who's bringing this person in, how much this person that is paying 50 million or 100 million to my organization, to my company, where is the source of this money? Where is this money coming from? Who is this person? That is a preventive control measure. So I am already putting a guardrail so that in case authorities come after me, or I may just end up being implicated in an anti-money laundering saga, that will not happen. I have already put a preventive shield. It's a shield. The other one is detective. Detective is detecting errors that have already happened. I'll give an example. I use a different example of transactions, financial transactions within the entity. So when money comes in, maybe it's recorded. Do we have a verification process to confirm that X amount of money came from this person? So that if we can be able to verify documents, verify transactions, verify entries, we can be able to detect an error and correct it before it graduates to a higher level of risk. And before now, when we come now to, doing accounts, those are the errors that were realized at their very early stages. And then now the corrective control system means now we can be able to correct that, okay? So that is the threefold comprehensive system when it comes to internal control systems. How to prevent errors, to detect errors and irregularities, and to correct errors and irregularities, so that to ensure there is accurate information, accurate record keeping, which now, because when there is accuracy of data, then you are also able to do a proper risk management analysis. When you're doing your financial reporting, you have a correct representation of the financial affairs of that organization. You're able to tell whether we have actually been making losses for sure, or we have been making profits for sure, whether there are leaks and gaps here and there. So that's an internal control system. Components of an internal control system, we have the control environment. That is the environment that enables that system to function. The ethics and codes of conduct within the organization, the processes and procedures that have been put in place. This is how to handle complaints. This is how to handle personal data. This is how to handle customer intake and onboarding and all that. Procurement processes, that is the control environment, as well as also how that is communicated within the all the employees and staff of that organization. The risk assessment is what we talked about. You need to look at the risks that are, the potential risk within the functioning and the operations of your entity. You list and categorize accordingly. Control activities are the things that you put in place to ensure that risk is controlled. What have you put in place? For instance, I'm going to go further into control activities. Just allow me to skip that for that. Information and communication means there is flow of information. There is communication. When there are communication barriers or inconsistencies, it ends up there's no clear flow of the real, what is exactly happening within this organization. If one department is functioning independent of another, we don't know. We are an organization, maybe a financial institution. The legal does not know what the credit is doing. The credit department does not know what another department is doing. So when there is not that flow of information and communication, you're not able to establish a proper and functional risk management system. Then monitoring as well. You have to keep monitoring and reviewing to see that everything is in order. Now, principles of control activities. The first one is establishment of responsibilities. So establishment of responsibilities mean you have made it clear your role is you're the records person. No one else can do that. No one else can take in the details of the clients who are coming in. No one else can bank checks in this company apart from Joki. Joki is the only person who's authorized to bank checks. No one else in this company is authorized to make withdrawals apart from Anita. So when you establish responsibilities and you close that, you make them close, that makes your control system tight and solid. Then segregation of duties. Segregation of duties here is for purposes of creating checks and balances. What I mean is this, that for some roles, you don't allow one person to carry it in their handbag. Like, where there are organizations where kuna departments, some people wanakuanga wamebeba department kwa handbag. So if it's maybe, allow me to use a finance example because I think that's a very relatable example. If it's maybe a project that we are running, the person who is in charge of collecting or mobilizing funds for that project should not be the same person who records the money that has been collected. And the person who records should not be the same person who maybe banks that money. And you could also have another person now who is in charge of the dissemination of those funds, okay? You don't let one person solely handle a crucial department on their own. So when you segregate duties, there is a system of checks and balances, and you can easily identify discrepancies or inconsistency within that chain, all right? So one link leads to another, it links to another, and then the chain is complete. It ensures accountability. And it's also a very good system of detecting fraud, of detecting corruption within the organization, because as we said, when we talk about risk governance, we are looking at factors like reputational risk. So if your company is caught up in a scandal of corruption, I don't know, 65 billion just got lost, corruption scandals, that in itself damages the reputation of your organization. But if you have this segregation of duties, you can easily detect some of those irregularities. Then documentation procedures, this could mean for every transaction, there is a receipt. All right, that's a pretty forward. Physical controls. Physical controls, those are just physical systems, infrastructure within your organization. It could be there are people that are limited in terms of access. Only a specific person can access the safe. Only authorized persons can access this office. You could have biometrics on the door so that we don't have any random person coming into the office. So use of biometrics. You could have CCTV cameras in the room and such. So those are physical controls. Independence and internal verification. That is where now you involve the internal auditors just to check everything that is going on with that organization, within the organization. And human resource controls. Human resource controls means managing the human resource within your organization, manage your team. This could mean sometimes even doing, someone could have stayed in a certain position so long, so much that you're not even able to detect any irregularities that are going on within that organization. But if you do a shift, you're able to see if someone else comes and sits in their position, they're able to identify some things that were happening that could not have been detected. So it could even mean doing proper background checks before hiring. So someone is coming in, do a proper check, where is this person coming from? You could employ someone and then they just damage the reputation of the organization. So those are some of the examples when it comes to principles of control activities. So when we talk about the role of the board, maybe to help us understand, to give us perspective, let's look at something called the 3 lines of defense in risk management. When we were doing the introduction to corporate governance, we looked at the corporate structure. So we have the board of directors, then we have up there, then we have the CEO and the senior management, the executives, and then the shareholders, and then down there we have everyone else, the creditors, the employees, the staff, the investors, and those people, and everyone else who doesn't have a direct interest in the organization. So understanding the 3 lines of defense in risk governance will help us place the board appropriately in this whole picture. The first line is the operational management. And having talked about internal control systems, this will help you understand. Operational management are the people who are the direct bearers of owners of risk. Okay, I'll give an example. If I am at the place where I am directly interacting with the customers, with the clients that are coming to this business, I am at the operational level. I am the one who ensures that I am getting the correct information, the correct data about this person. I'm the one who ensures that the manner in which I am collecting information from this person is in compliance with data protection laws and regulations. So I am at the very, let me call it, contact. I am the contact point when it comes to risk. Okay, if it's in finance and accounting, if I'm the person who is recording transactions, I am at the operational level. If I'm the person who is giving money for purchases, doing procurement, I am at the operational level. So that's the first line of defense, because these are the people who will ensure that we are get in. You are like the defenders, yeah, the very at the front line of the defense. Then the second line of defense, these are the management level, risk and compliance management. So these are the people who are in charge of coming up with policies, coming up with processes, because if I am an administrator in an office, I'm not the one who comes up with the policies and procedures as to how the front office desk is supposed to be run. There's another person in a more senior management level who comes up with that policy. Okay, the customer relationship policy. Who comes up with the data protection, and then now the people at the operational level implement that. So the second line of defense is knowing where there's risk, knowing what we can mitigate, what we can do to mitigate, knowing what measures can be put in place. These are people who are maybe internal committees to look at certain issues, make recommendations on certain areas. When it comes to risk, maybe we need to make sure we have a proper compensation policy. We need to make sure we take insurance on this area. That's the second line. The third line is independent assurance. This is the internal audit. So these people just provide an overview. So they will give like a bad eye, an internal auditor who will now look at everything and give an overview. Then now when it comes to the board is the overall risk oversight. All these people are, all the three lines are under the board. So with that understanding, we can now confidently make the conclusion that when it comes to risk governance within an organization, the buck stops with the board. The shareholders will not come for the cashier. The shareholders will not come after the driver who used the wrong route when he was going to, I don't know, deliver milk. The investors will not come after the risk manager. The investors, they will not come after the risk manager and tell them, oh, you do not, you know, there are loopholes within your risk management framework. The risk manager is not answerable to the investors. The investors will come for the board. And that's why now you see the entire load, the burden ultimately of risk governance, it ultimately rests upon the board. Think now that gives us a very clear understanding of the role of the board in risk governance, and which is what was supposed to be the very concern of today's webinar. To look at your board, okay? To look at, we as a board, have we ensured? Because if there is no proper risk management framework, it is the board that is answerable. So it is for you to sit down as an organization and think, what are the gaps? Who can we put in to address the gaps? We are not saying that the board of directors, that the board of trustees, if you are maybe a charitable organization like an NGO, we are not saying that the board constitutes of experts. We are saying the board sits in a place of decision making where they can say, there's a new law that has come, right? There are new, let's say, reporting standards that have been published. Have we ensured that they have actually been implemented in our organization? They are not the ones who are going to implement. They will now sit and see, oh, we need to hire someone who can be able to help us interpret these IFRS standards and help us now to comply within those standards in our financial reporting. It is the work of the board to sit and look, oh, there is this new trend and emerging area of ESG, environment, social, and governance. So we as a company, are we strategically placed to benefit from investors who want to invest in projects or business initiatives? Are we strategically placed? What are investors looking for? Investors are looking for companies who have robust ESG, compliance measures. They will not, because now it's when it comes to reporting, it's not just like when long time ago it was just the focus was mostly about financial reporting. People are now concerned about the health of the board. How is the board performing in terms of accountability, in terms of transparency? How is the organization doing in terms of environmental responsibility? That is where ESG comes in, the environment tenet of it. Are there eco-friendly projects or initiatives that our company is undertaking? Is our company fashioned or designed, the manner in which we operate, does it promote the sustainability agenda? Are there things that we need to change within our organization to increase the appetite of investors for our projects, for our initiatives, to make us attractive to not only investors, but also to other market players like stakeholders? Would people want to invest in our organization? Would they want to be part of our company? Do we have proper social systems? I'm talking about ESG, the environment, the social, and then the governance. This is where we look at what are your labor practices, what are your employment policies, issues to do with sexual harassment. How is sexual harassment handled in this organization? How do I handle issues of gender? How do I handle issues of mental health? These days the things that people are interested in go beyond the financial well-being of that organization. So those are the things that a board sits in and considers. What are the trends and what needs to be put in place for us to conform to what the market is looking for? That is strategy. If we are talking about AI, it is not the person at the operational level that will start putting in place AI or policies or AI frameworks. It's about to sit down and think, okay, it seems like the world trend right now and where the world is headed right now, AI is inevitable. What is the effect? What is the impact of AI on this organization? We as the board, we probably are old men that have no idea what even this AI could mean. Should we then appoint a committee? Should you appoint a committee, maybe a technology and committee, to look into that issue, see what are the opportunities in AI for the operations of the business, because it's going to increase our efficiency. So it's the work of that committee that will now come and give the board a report. So we have looked at this, and we have looked at this issue of AI, and we have seen AI can improve the operational efficiency of this organization. So I think we need to implement some, to invest in AI for this organization. And also, what are the cyber threats that AI poses to this organization? Okay, when we look at the government being hacked, if an entire government is being hacked, how much more my small company? What are the safeguards that we as a company have put in place to ensure that we are not exposed to cyber attacks? If Naivas data is being, the data of their customers is being stolen by cyber criminals, how much more my organization? And if I am exposed to that kind of risk, what do I need to put in place to ensure that I don't end up, being in breach, incurring losses by being fined by the ODPC? All right, so that's the work of the board. You sit down, you look at the entire risk management framework, you look at the information that is coming from the lower side to you, and then you strategize, and then you pass down decisions for implementation to the lower level. The next thing, the role of the board in risk governance: discussing risk, approving risk decisions, assigning roles and authority. Assigning roles and authority, we said it's part of the internal control systems, where you say these are the only people who are allowed to sign checks in this organization. Yeah. Continuous assessment, appointing committees, like what I gave an example. You can appoint a committee to look into the issue of AI within the organization, could be an audit committee and so on, to strategize, to ensure that there's a risk management framework, and also to do periodical review. All right, someone is trying to speak? Okay. All right, ingredients of a robust risk governance framework. So what does a robust risk governance framework look like? First of all, information adequacy. This is from both fronts, internal and external fronts. Internal fronts, we mean that that is flowing up and even down, both ways, from the operational level to the management level to the board level. There's information adequacy, and likewise. But internal do we know what funding opportunities that the company is looking, so that we don't have departments that are working independently. There needs to be a coherence in how the entire organization is functioning. When there is that information gap, then the entity or the board is not able to have a proper estimation, a proper view of its risks and opportunities, and to know how to mitigate. So there needs to be that internal information adequacy. When it comes to external information, it's what I was sharing about. You need to know what is happening outside there. You need to know how the stock market is doing. You need to know what are the new reporting standards. You need to know what are the new laws and regulations that have come up that are affecting your company or your organization, your whatever enterprise that it is that you have, your NGO. I give an example of the Public Benefits Organization Act that came up. So you are an NGO, you have no idea that there's a PBO Act that came to replace the NGO Coordination Act. You have no idea that you're supposed to register within a certain period of time. The timelines in which you're supposed to register under the PBO Act, you have no idea. So when the authorities come after you, you're like, oh, you are so ignorant about what is happening. So it's good that you have an ear for what is happening outside and what is happening inside. Effective strategy, that comes from the level of the board. You need to strategize effectively, put in place strategies that will ensure your organization is well placed. You leverage on what is selling, okay? So you gain advantage if you're properly placed within the ecosystem. Then efficient and adequate communication, that ties to information adequacy, where I was saying there needs to be proper communication within the organization. Continuous risk oversight, because risks are static. Risk is very static. If we are looking at maybe natural disasters, natural disaster is a risk. Nobody was prepared for the floods. If you frequently sit down, the body is able to frequently sit down, listen to what is coming from the lower levels, listen to recommendations. They are able to have a proper picture of risk that is emerging, risk that has gone low, okay? So that the decisions that it's continuously making are updated. You may find that the policies that you had last year are no longer applicable this year. You need to make changes. Robust internal control systems, then comprehensive and solid structures. Frequent review, I think I've mentioned that, I've explained that, and expertise. As I said, the board is not necessarily a group of experts. An organization will be better placed if it has the advantage of expert input within its risk governance framework. If you don't know how to implement reporting standards, you need an expert. You need to hire an expert to come and tell you this is what you need to do to comply to the new standards. You need someone to come and a lawyer to come and do a legal audit for you to tell you, by the way, your employment and your entire HR infrastructure is needs to be reconfigured. Okay, you need to put these measures here. Someone who can be able to come and look at your contracts and tell you the way your contracts are designed, your organization is the risk is really high. So you can reframe your contract, someone that can come and look at your contract and help you reframe them to reduce the liabilities, the potential liabilities for your organization. So that's what I'm talking when I say expert. And the bottom line of this is that for any organization that wants to have an effective, a robust risk governance framework, there has to be a lot of intentionality. And intentionality even implies financial intentionality. Unfortunately, most SMEs do not have a legal budget. They only run to lawyers when there's fire. When it's burning, that's when you run. Oh, this has happened. My employee, oh, I had a staff who left. Now they are suing me. I have a court case. And if you had just involved a lawyer maybe in the first place to help you to structure your employment contract, you would not have found yourself in that trouble, because you woke up in the morning and said, by the way, this staff has been sick for the entire 2 weeks. She has not been coming to work. And then the day she comes, you tell her, I don't think we can work anymore. The way your health has been, I think you need to find another place. And then you just send her away. She went and found a lawyer, she sued you, and now you have a case. You have a case in court. So when things are burning, that's when you run for experts. And you see, the problem with that is that it becomes more costly for you when you are putting out fires. It is less costly if you put in guardrails and safeguards to ensure that things don't start burning in the first place. So risk governance also needs a budget. So in the budgeting within the organization, you need to have a risk governance budget that is very comprehensive. You need to look at what do we need to do. We need an audit. Do we need a legal audit? Yes, we need a legal audit. You need to have a budget for that. Do we need to cater for maybe compliance? You know, some people don't think that compliance needs a budget. Do you have a budget for compliance? Do you have a budget for maybe compliance in terms of reporting. Do you have a budget for that? So those are some of the considerations that the board should have in mind in the running of that organization, so that you have a solid a solid company, a solid entity, a solid NGO, whatever it is that you have that can stand. Okay, the end goal is sustainability. This one I talked about on trends and emerging issues in ESG, so I don't think I'm going to regurgitate that. Yeah, but the area of ESG is an area that if you have not been looking at it, you need to give it some attention, not some attention, you need to give it considerable attention, because right now ESG has become a very crucial and fundamental element of corporate governance. Then with that, let's just look at some of the challenges to achieving efficient risk governance. I think the first one I have already said, lack of budgeting. There's no budget for risk governance. Then lack of a comprehensive view of risks across different departments and processes. Siloed risk management, as I said, where different departments within the organization manage risks in isolation without collaboration, so there's no coherence. And limited risk awareness and training. For instance, in the issue of data protection right now, so many organizations, so many companies, so many entities, they don't have an idea of the laws surrounding data protection, and people get to know about these things when things go wrong. Like, it's after you see people being fined, it's after you see the ODPC fining a school 5 million, fining a lender, 5 million, that you realize, okay, so there's actually something called data protection, and there are all these regulations. So you don't have to wait until the stone rests on you so that you realize what you need to do. So that is limited risk awareness and training, failure to understand secondary consequences of specific risk and the interconnections among consequences and between risks and opportunities. Yeah, so you need to be able to attach opportunities to risks. And inappropriate involvement of different stakeholders, groups, and lack of consideration for public opinion. Because at the end of the day, we said that the reputation of the organization is very important. So you need to involve the right kind of people to secure the reputation of the organization. And lastly, regulatory compliance and complexities. We understand sometimes you have no idea where to start. So regulation can be complex. It can be a bit difficult even to understand. That's when now you bring in the help of experts to help you break down and implement regulatory standards within your organization. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I've finished my presentation. So I'll open the forum for any questions so that we can interact. Thank you. Miriam, you had asked the board, repeat on the first line. That was on operational management, or the first line of defense. Okay, the operational line, the first line of defense, the operational management means the people who are on the ground, the people who are there, interact with the risk. Okay, the person who is receiving money, the person who is making payments, the person who is onboarding clients, the person who is taking in personal data from the people that are coming in, the person at the security desk, the person at the gate. Those at the operational level, that is what we call the first line of defense. Okay, so and those ones, the people at the operational level, they rely on what is coming from the second line. You understand? They rely on what is coming from the second line. So if if the second line has given us a data protection policy and I'm a watchman at the gate, it is for me to implement that data protection policy on how I am going about the collection of that data. I am a photographer. I am going out for the company event. I am taking photos. I am posting them on social media. Is there a company policy on how I'm supposed to go about that? I'll give an example of some case that was involving Safaricom, one of Safaricom's employees. So this employee shared the information of a customer to a private investigator. Okay, you see how people do private investigation, then you go to Safaricom and you want to mine data concerning a certain person. So the person who was affected, they sued Safaricom. And Safaricom said, this person, this staff, whatever they did, they shared this customer's information to a third party against the company's policy. And because of that, the Safaricom as a company was exonerated because they had already put in place structures, and this staff now bore personal liability for that. So that's now giving that example, that staff at that level is the one at the operational level. All right. All right. Then with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you so much for taking time to join us today. And I believe that you have taken home insightful and practical lessons you can apply within your context. Would love to hear from you also, because this is a very general presentation. As I said, there are some things that are very unique to wherever you are. So if you would like us to come and talk to your board, help you put structures in place, help you come up with a proper risk governance system, you kindly contact us, and we will be sure we'll be happy to be of support to you.